How you doing, sir?
Gonna be good, all right?
We're now reconvening as Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2017-07 for March 21st, 2017. The one item left on the agenda, of course, saving the best for last, is the work session with the Board of Education. So we're glad to have everyone here. You certainly can come forward if you'd like. Bring your entourage. Nobody wants to hang around. That's it.
Dr. Townsend did an agenda, and maybe you have that. Okay, very good.
Dr. Townsend's doing a great job at the Chamber of Commerce as well.
Why, thank you.
Representing the Chamber.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yes, if you don't mind, that's fine.
Let me just start with an item that isn't on here. I wanted to bring each one of you your own copy of Achieve 1.0, which hopefully you've seen this online. This is my report to the community, but I wanted the council to have
Great. Thank
your
you.
own copies of that. Happy to discuss anything in there in detail, but I won't take the time now unless you have specific questions that are already on your mind.
Thank you very much.
Sure. The first item that we have on the agenda is a transportation update. I know that council members have over time asked questions about, specifically about how we award bus contracts. So Mr. Hughes is with us here this afternoon. We're going to provide some information for you that'll maybe give you a little bit better idea of how we make those decisions, trying to find a balance between supporting our local bus contractors and also being fiscally responsible. I'll turn it over to Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, gentlemen. As Dr. Hamlin has said, just going to give you an aerial view of what we're doing in transportation as it relates to operations. Dr. Hamlin said there was a concern I guess where we stood, contractor versus county-wide, county-owned operation. So therefore, I provided for you is in your packet, if you refer to the last page of the packet, so I'll start backward, go from the back and work front to the forward. Just provided a visual of how we stand within the county. Of the 160 buses that we have, operating in the county currently, 85% of that fleet is owned and operated by independent contractors around the county. 15%, 11% being routed school buses are owned by the county, owned and operated by the county, and then 4% of the fleet, which represents about 6 spares, are used for backups, field trips, and stuff like that. Again, owned and operated by the county. The first page, the very first page, is kind of a timeline of how the dynamics of contractor and county owned operation have changed since 2012. In 2013, we were kind of thrust into owning and operating our first school bus contracts in this case, or school bus routes in this county. That was as a result of the Office of Legislative Auditors, who came down, made some recommendations. The superintendent at the time took up on those recommendations, and we started out with about 2 contracts. Since then, as you can read for yourself, we've had several contractors either surrender their contracts, a few were terminated, one passed away, and we have, over the course of time since 2012, back in 2012 had 73 contractors. As we sit here today, we have 50 contractors. So we've lost 23 contractors, independent contractors, over that course of time.
What were the suggestions from the Legislative Services Office?
The suggestions, recommendations of the Office of Legislative Auditors back in 2012 were one they give the same recommendation to a contractor operated school district around the state, and that is that you need to evaluate the feasibility of a county owned and operated operation. Again, that's a recommendation that they put forth not only to this county but to any county or school district around the state. That recommendation kind of is pretty standard. Again, during that legislative audit, we discovered that there were some fraudulent behaviors going on with one particular contractor, and at the time, the superintendent heeded the recommendation of the legislative auditors, and we assumed at least 2 of those particular contracts.
What's an OAL? What's an OA?
Office of Legislative
Office of Legislative Auditors.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, just make sure.
The contractors, when their GPS didn't match, the GPS they were matching didn't match their logs.
Well, back in 2012, we had not fully implemented GPS.
Okay.
We had purchased GPS, and because of some concerns with the contractors, we had not fully implemented all the GPS systems. As a matter of fact, the GPS units stayed in a closet for about a year and a half. It wasn't until about 2013 that the board, the superintendent, decided that we were going to go full steam ahead with the GPSs, and we changed the contract to incorporate GPS, and we installed those GPS units on all school buses. And we currently have a procedure in place is that we go by GPS. If there's a discrepancy with time and mileage manifest, we compare that to GPS, and the GPS overrules time and mileage manifest.
So do the minivans have GPS?
That's correct.
So you say discrepancy or any question to follow up with the GPS. There's nothing that flags you all to check it that day?
Well, no, and time and mileage reports are submitted pretty much quarterly, 3 times a year. It's one submitted in September 15th, one is submitted January 15th, and another is submitted April the 15th. So 3 times a year, contractors submit a time and mileage report. Many of them don't change drastically, but there are some changes. But, you know, we have a policy in place that if a manifest increase or decrease by a quarter of an hour or 4 miles, that a contractor is to submit a new manifest. That happens sometimes, sometimes it doesn't. We check those when a manifest, a time and mileage report is submitted. It is checked by GPS.
And you also check to see if somebody's driving too fast on their route.
We get those kind of alarms as well. And typically, if that is the case, we contact the contractor. Contractor consults with their driver.
Gotcha.
Okay. One thing that I think was asked was the operating cost of our county-owned operation. So I have taken the time more recently using relevant information, current data for this fiscal year. I went back and looked at what repairs, how much it's costing us to operate our 15% of our fleet that I showed you on that pie chart, how much it's costing us to operate our buses. Using, as I said, real-time data. That's reflected on the third page, those cost comparison sheets. We've presented these to you guys before. And typically, historically, we kind of give you estimates. The numbers that are in this particular data set are actually exact. Again, we went as recent as Friday, March the 17th. In operating a school bus, there's only really two components. That's the vehicle itself and the human resource to drive that piece of equipment. That's really all that's involved. As you will see in this, and we're looking at simply operating costs is all we're looking at. For a minimum route, all our contractors are guaranteed a minimum of 4.25 hours and 55 miles. That's a guarantee. Typically, we have those most of the time in the corporate limits of the city of Salisbury, maybe up in the Delmar area, but those typically, we have roughly about less than a dozen of those routes still out in the contractor world. Looking at a minimum route, the first column is a contractor with a brand new bus with no air conditioning. The second column is a contractor with an air conditioned bus. And then up to the right of the purple is how much the county can operate that same route for. Again, looking simply, the first from columns 1 through 6, total vehicle cost, again, is that piece of equipment. There you have the numbers. Really, we've been fortunate, just as a side note, as the county, that we've been able to purchase the majority of our fleet using budget realignments, savings from cost avoidances and stuff like that. So really that factor of 62, 66, 67 really is a non-issue for us because the majority of our school buses we've been able to purchase outright, pay cash for. But we did, I think, finance at least about 2.5 of those school buses that we currently have. Looking at the vehicle operation, again, that is current data. I was surprised myself when I ran the numbers and had it verified by our finance department. We currently can operate a school bus using the maintenance rate of 30 cents a mile.
Why is that?
Well, probably what would attribute to that is the majority of our buses are brand new. So any big repairs are covered under warranty.
Okay, so a contractor, he get a new bus, he's operating under the same thing, because he's under warranty too.
So, but we pay currently this year, 0.834 a mile. But we're operating that same bus, same route for 30 cents a mile. And that's based off of, again, I looked at oil changes, bus washes, tire rotations, anything that cost us any money for that school bus is what's incorporated in that maintenance rate.
But you're not taking, when you got your columns here on the county, you're not putting the cost of the bus over here.
Well, again, as I just said, I depreciate that bus over 15 years, and that's what represents the 62, 66, 67.
Yeah. But the county still has to buy, you still have to buy buses, taxpayers are buying buses, but you don't have it in the column.
That is the depreciation of that $94,000 bus over 15 period.
Yeah.
So
So you're
really,
saying you can operate that bus for $6,900 where it costs a contractor $20,000? Is that what you're saying?
because that's what we're reimbursing the contractor for.
Every year for the life of the bus, we pay that contractor the $18,585.
Right. Moving further down, again, let me just pause, make sure there's no questions about anything I've covered thus far.
I'm just thinking, it costs $20,000 on this column for the contractor, and we can do it in the Board of Ed for $7,000.
For the piece of equipment. We pay as Dr. Townsend alluded to, as Mr. Davis can attest to, we pay a contractor the full PVA for the life of the bus. So that means when a contractor buys a bus, if they bought a bus today and put it in service and with air conditioning, we would pay that contractor, reimburse that contractor $18,525 times 15 years. That equates to $277,000 and some change, almost $278,000 over the life of the bus.
So it costs 3 times as much.
Well, you gotta look at Larry, that 18,000 he's getting that first year,
Yeah.
that's a bus payment. And he's gotta detract from that to make a bus payment till that bus is paid off. Then after those 5 years, he's gotta recoup that loss that he's had to take from his hourly to make that bus payment.
That's something that the Office of Legislative Orders have pinned us for, not only us, but again, other school districts around the state when you have a contractor operation.
But looking at this, it looks like it would make more sense, and this is on paper, that the Board of Ed would do all the bus routes.
Well, it might make fiscal sense, but our board has been very, and Mr. Dodd, when you were on the board, you remember those days, they've been very adamant in their direction that they want to keep school bus
Yeah, I
contractors
understand that.
as a fabric of our school
But if
system.
somebody coming along is counting pennies, they would probably say, well, it makes
That
more
is correct.
sense. I'm just pointing that out, but I think Ernie would probably have a better view of it than I do.
Because if you look at the maintenance, say this contractor's getting $48,000 a year, regardless of what his maintenance cost is, that's all he's gonna get from the board. You don't know what they would get for, I'm quite sure they're not gonna let a bus sit. They say they don't have money for it. And that's the maintenance factor that they don't have in here, and that's part of that.
I'm sorry, what'd you say? I missed.
The maintenance, because that's part of the thing we have problems with this audit. That audit is like a one-sided thing. It doesn't look into the maintenance and the factor of what we have to do as a contractor.
Well, I will tell you, we've not hired a mechanic. So when our bus tears up, we go to the same shops that our contractors go to. J.G. Parks, Penn International, I.G. Burton, wherever the bus, and we pay the same $110 rate, shop rate that our contractors do. And again, I just simply looked at the numbers, took the numbers, put them on paper, and added and divided is what I did, and we came up with 30 cents a
So
mile.
you don't have a program to figure this out for you, you're doing it by hand?
When we get an invoice for repair, we put it into a spreadsheet
Yeah, but
and log that cost, that expense per bus.
I didn't know if they had a purchase program that you can buy to calculate your costs for you.
No, we're still doing it bare bones.
That's fine.
Now that 18,585, you said that includes the, what did you call it, the PVA?
That's the per vehicle allotment. That is a reimbursement for the contractor for the initial investment of making the purchase of the school bus.
is
And
that
again, every year for
every
15
year?
years, for 15
So,
years.
so in a period of 15 years, you've paid about $300,000 for the
About
bus.
$277,685.
And the cost of the bus is about 100-ish.
Right, yeah. So, I guess the PVA, I know that's some type of more complicated formula, am I correct?
Well, it's a formula that was approved and sent down by the Maryland State Department of Education, which
Right.
factors in the sales tax as well as a 9-point-some% of return on investment. So I think it's like a
Okay.
16.67% is what over the cost of the bus is how we get a PVA.
I
Is how
think
it
that's
becomes
what
a PVA.
everybody's having trouble with. They're seeing 6,000 over here, 18,000 here, and they're going like, well, what the heck causes that discrepancy? It can't be the cost of the vehicle because it's the same vehicle. So I
Right.
guess maybe a
It's because-
clarification on the PVA. would
Well,
be-
the PVA, because we pay that PVA over the life of the bus.
I understand you
if it's a
have to, but I
contract.
think I don't think anybody understands what entails, what's brought about with the PVA that costs such an exorbitant difference in pricing.
Well, again, a part of that, again, is
State-driven.
the ROI, the return on investment, which is about 9%, which is factored in.
Okay.
And again, that is a formula that was approved and adopted and passed down many years ago by the State Department of Education. The only thing we've done to that is when we went from a 10-year bus to a 12-year bus to now a 15-year bus, we just increased the percentage to extrapolate that out over the years.
And honestly, to the advantage of the contractor, because they're getting that money. We're paying them that money year after
Yeah.
year after
So
year.
you're paying them an ROI, and at the same time, you're still paying them hourly
Yes.
per
That
day.
that is correct.
And maintenance.
It's pretty much the only job, some would say, that you get paid. We purchase the vehicle, and we then pay you to drive that vehicle as well as maintain that vehicle.
And guarantee you
A minimum.
return
Minimum, yeah.
over
and
above-
an
over
ROI.
above the contract salary,
Yes,
and that's 9%?
about 9%, yes.
So this sheet is a minimum route.
This sheet's a minimum route, and as I said, if you look at the annual savings, which is just above the peach colored, second from the column, for a minimum route, the cost difference is about $9,100 for that bus without air conditioning, and for a bus with air conditioning, about $11,000 over the course of the bus. The peach color is over the total life, 15 years of that bus. The second page is the average contract. Our average contract in the county is about 5 hours and 80 miles. That's the average contract. And so we did the same thing, same calculation. The only difference is that the annual difference of operating costs for that bus is about $12,000 for a bus without air conditioning. Bus with air conditioning, about $16,500. The numbers are the numbers. And certainly, again, I understand, Mr. Dodd, what you're saying. But again, I strongly believe as Director of Transportation, there is a value having school bus contractors. I am not a proponent for us assuming all the runs. There are certain parts of this county there, in Willards and in our far parts of the county, it just would not be feasible to have buses sitting in Salisbury going to pick up kids. So I do believe there is a value for having school bus contractors as a part of our educational system.
But no matter where the bus is sitting, it's still going to be the same miles.
Well, although as you said, those who are fiscally conservative would look at this and wonder why, we are only 15% of our total fleet.
And we try to hire contractors that are closest to the route, so we don't have to pay the debt funds.
As long as everybody's happy.
Well, I don't know about everybody happy, but as long as we can justify what we're
trying to
doing is my
find
concern.
balance.
I know.
Any questions for me?
The stipend, what's that?
The stipend is something that we provide our drivers, our county employed drivers. And we did this because we realized about a year and a half ago, over the Christmas break, our drivers who were off for 2 weeks due to school being closed for the holidays, they went to attempt to apply for unemployment and were denied. And we found out that if you are an employee of a school system, that you are ineligible to draw unemployment. So therefore, they're ineligible to draw unemployment during the Christmas break as well as during the summer months because they get a check from the Board of Education. If that same driver drove for one of our contractors, they could draw unemployment during those periods of times. So in order to be able to recruit and retain the workforce that we need to drive these buses, we went to the superintendent and he embraced us providing a stipend, one being $3,000 a benefit stipend, to offset these times where our contracted employees are ineligible to draw unemployment because they work for the school system. We also provide a $1,000 stipend, which drivers can get $500 per semester if they do not miss no more than 2 days of driving. So if they don't miss no more than 2 days, they're eligible for the stipend. If they miss 1.5 days, they get a $500 check about February, and then another attendance stipend at the end back in June.
You pay them a bonus for showing up to work?
Well, stipend.
Yeah.
And as you said,
That's what it is.
and again, even with the stipend, I encourage you to look at the bottom number. We're still well under what we're reimbursing contractors.
So that 4,000 is included in the
That
bottom line.
$4,000, if you look at line number 21, that stipend is included.
Okay.
And again, let me just say before Mr. Davis, there's a nationwide shortage on school bus drivers. We are fortunate that we've not experienced that shortage
Yeah.
in this county yet.
Do you do that with employees? You wouldn't know, but the folks that work in the cafeterias and all at the schools, they get those weeks off too between and Christmas. Do you give them a stipend also?
No, we don't.
So they don't go try to draw unemployment?
Well, they
Or
can't draw.
They can't draw unemployment.
They still get paid.
They, yeah,
No.
they would get like a 20, they spread their pay out across the year, 24 pays.
So they don't get paid for working that 2 weeks, like the bus drivers do. They don't get paid for not working that 2 weeks, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
They get paid for a certain number of days, so their contract is that they work 182 days.
Okay.
Yeah, our drivers only get paid if they work. If they don't work, they don't get paid.
Then they get a bonus if they do work though.
You say bonus, I say stipend.
Stipend, same thing.
But yeah, so I mean, and then also, and again, before we did this, before I went to Dr. Townsend to do this, I did poll or survey some of our contractors. Our contractors, again, in their effort to retain and recruit drivers to drive their buses, we have contractors who, like during those same weeks, or if there's a short week like the spring break, where we only go to school for 3 days, they pay their drivers for a full week. Or, they have some other type of incentive.
Some do.
Some other type of incentive to keep drivers driving their school buses. Again, we only pay drivers if they work.
I want to know to do that. But we have to pay that out of that 1961. You're also paying them $16.90 an hour, plus you're giving them a $4,000 bonus. Out of that 1961, not only that, but I have to pay taxes, workman comp for my drivers out of that 1961.
So do we. That's a part of the 20%, 20 points in this, I think it's line 26. That 20% is our workman's comp, all that kind of stuff, those
But
fringe.
it's not coming out of that $16.90 that you're paying your drivers an hourly rate. That's a separate line. You're not taking it out of that $16.90, the hourly rate that you're paying your drivers.
Well, in your 1961, we include 23%.
Where?
See on the reimbursement? It says it includes 23% fringe factor,
Where's that?
line 23.
Right above it. $900.
Your 1961 that we've reimbursed contractors for, it includes a 23% fringe factor so that you can take those administrative costs out of your reimbursement. You didn't know that?
No,
Oh.
we did not know that. I'm glad we're finally finding out what
Yeah.
this stuff is for.
Well, now again, that's based off, if you look at line 30, that fringe percentage is needed to support at least the $15 that most contractors reimburse their drivers.
And if you're interested, the 23 buses that were listed on the pie chart, we also gave you a sheet that said what they're actually doing. Some are minimum routes, some are special ed routes, some are spare buses. Some are handicapped accessible and some are not.
I'm hearing that some of the teams can't bring all their players because there's no room on the buses.
Well, and some of our buses are, we have a maximum capacity on our school buses. And certainly when you look at some teams, which, let's say your football team, what you're getting on the bus with shoulder pads and all the accessory equipment.
We need a van.
Right. There are some schools that do request, some of the larger schools with larger teams, they do request 2 buses. But, we always have to take safety in mind. So, with the track and field, we can't have the back door a block in the event there's an emergency.
So some games, kids have to stay back.
Or they have to, or the school has to order an additional bus.
You can't use a minivan to bring it.
Well, typically those are busy transporting our students. Every day I've got 5 vans
I'm
on
thinking
the,
about the kids. It's for the kids.
right.
They
I'm thinking
sign
about
up to play the sport.
I'm right there. As long as the athletic director requests 2 buses, we'll make sure we provide them with that additional resource.
But the vans are typically used to transport our fit students, and so we have to do the instruction first.
So based on the first page, it says school year 2016-17, there were 53 contractors.
Yes.
In your chart, it says, what, there's 111 contractors? Am I reading
No,
that wrong?
buses.
Buses.
The chart reflects buses.
Oh, okay, so some of the contractors
Have multiple buses.
Okay,
Yes.
I got you, okay.
So we have 50 contractors and 160 buses.
But this says 53 right here.
I think
Right.
in the last year, it's maybe.
Right. If you're
Okay, I
right, if
got
you're
you.
on this year,
I got you.
come July 1st, we had 53 contractors. Since July 1st, 3 contractors have surrendered their contracts.
Okay.
So it
So-
sounds like that's the trend, that every year you're losing more and more contractors.
That is correct.
Do you have people wanting contracts?
We just recently had an interview just for open contracts, and of that pool, we had a very shallow pool. We had 4 contractors, existing contractors, Mr. Davis being one, came in to be interviewed for an additional school bus contract.
Do you need a resolution to approve Mr. Davis's contract?
Hasn't been awarded. He may not want it.
Very detailed, Mr. Hughes. We really appreciate you taking
Yes,
the time
indeed.
to put it together.
Good job.
Thank you.
I believe the next item was something that,
Thank you,
that
Desmond.
you, as a council,
I think, yeah, just, you know, where we are with this, how we think it's going. I think we've done our part as well, I believe, to try to make sure things are moving forward. Yes.
did you have a question?
Well,
about-
I was just going through some emails. I'm not quite sure where I got this from. I think it was emails maybe on your website. And I just happened to run into the fact that there was about an $80,000 modification on the Mardella track, and I thought that was an extremely high number. So I was just curious, since you were coming in within a couple of days, I thought I'd at least put that on the agenda to see what there was. And I guess there was also a modification on West Salisbury, but it was to a much lesser degree, and maybe somewhat inconsequential, but I don't remember at this stage what the amount was.
Sure. For West Salisbury's change modification, it involved the acceptance of alternate number 11, which was for automatic temperature controls. We also use that for our energy management system. That resulted in an add of $41,000. On the other side, there was a cost reduction to a previously accepted alternate, which was alternate number 7 for the facilities maintenance database. So the overall, it resulted in an overall deduct for 30 for that. So the total contract modification was for $11,000.
Yeah, it was minimal. I remember it being minimal. But I thought that the Mardella track was a bit more.
Well, soils are complicated entities, and it's requiring the purchase of some additional sand to make sure that the field is going to properly drain. You're talking about an 18-inch undercut currently, as well as modifications to the topsoil so that the sod will take. So there's modifications to the subbase layer, the root zone layer, as well as the topsoil layer to make sure that that field is going to drain. The contractor reached out to several different supply people. That was the best price that they were able to get. They are verifying all tickets that are coming on site to make sure, and that's not even all of just the sand, that's mixing the sand with the original soils. So we kind of value engineered what the original recommendation was from the geotechnical engineer.
I guess the more than obvious question is, don't they take those things into consideration and make sure they're quite aware of what the soil types are before they quote them?
We The existing soils, for the most part, appear to be draining fine. When they got into it, what we've learned is it's actually the roots of the grass that are assisting those soils in draining. So once you've disturbed those soils, that if you did not make modifications by adding the additional sand, the sod won't take properly. This is a very tight schedule. We are trying to accomplish this such that that field is ready to play on at the beginning of the fall sports season, which is why we integrated the use of the Bermuda sod into the base bid instead of an alternate.
I don't remember through the CIP, what was the original contract on that? Wasn't it, what was the original contract on that Mardell track? Remember? Was it 900?
Well, it's not a contract at that point. The original budget
the
request
original.
was for $742,000, which was just for a track.
Question while you're there. These are engineering design errors?
I don't necessarily say it would be a design error. It's more like a
It's not a contract, not a contractor error.
undiscovered condition.
It's a mystery.
It's like when you open an existing wall and you discover there's asbestos coated on a pipe. You
I
couldn't
see.
predict for that.
And
you
the-
have to address the asbestos when you discover it.
Okay. And the engineers don't do any pre-research on this type of thing?
No,
But
they do.
Of course.
They made certain assumptions based upon what the existing
Assumptions.
drainage was happening.
I see.
Okay.
They assumed.
Select fill, and when they really got into it, we realized it was not going to be acceptable for that particular drainage situation.
Because that's over a 10% cost increase on the track, I guess.
Are you taking that on the $742,000?
Yeah.
No, the
Just
track,
believe me,
the
most
track
basic
budget is
math.
$1.5 million.
All right, well, break that down.
That's the
for
contract.
About a 5% increase then.
The total
5% increase.
total contract is $1.5 million.
I don't know. I never like, I don't, you know, I've never been a fan of that. I know we ran into the same problem. We were doing the connector where we all of a sudden started to put a road in. We found out there was a dump right exactly where they were trying to lay the road.
I mean, you can do borings in as many locations as possible. You just can't hit and discover everything that you're possibly going to get into when you're digging that far into the ground.
Wow. All right. Well, I just think sometimes it needs reviewing regardless. There's always an explanation for it, no discredit to anybody, but I always think it's worthy of review.
And they have been reviewed by both the School Building Commission and the board. And we do have civil engineers sitting on the School Building Commission as well.
Okay. Any questions? Nope. Okay.
For number 4?
She
Thanks.
might have this question. It's not on the paper, but the lights at Bennett, at the tennis courts compared to what's at the football field, why they're like stadium lights on the tennis court? Why didn't they put lights on the football field?
Because that was not an accepted alternate at the time that the contract award for James and Bennett. I wasn't here at the time, but it wasn't part of the scope of work. It was not an accepted alternate.
So they put the lights at the tennis court, so they plan on playing tennis at night?
I believe that was part of phase 1. I'd have to go back and check.
Because I'm understanding that, nice as that track is they have at Bennett, but they can't have regionals and states there because it might go into the late hours and they don't have the light in there.
That's correct.
And it's extremely expensive, and that was part of the reason that the lights were not put at Bennett
So,
from the original design.
so again, why did they put them at the tennis court and they don't play tennis at night? And to me, they look like their stadium, like the same ones at the county stadium that could light that field up easily. So that's the only thing is, why would they put them at a tennis court that they're going to use them at night when they could have just been easily put at the football field? Not say they could play football, but like you said, the track, which could have got them the regionals and so forth.
I'd have to go back to the original contract approval for the phase 1. That was back in 2000.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Thank you, Ray. Okay.
Your number 4, I think you placed that one on there also, perhaps to just update us on where we are with the nominating commission
Yes.
committee.
We, well, from our standpoint, we approved all of those today. we got them all done, resolutions been passed, so that's moving forward there.
The last item that we had was just an invitation, 2 invitations actually that you see on the agenda, just opportunities for you to learn a little bit more about the work that we're doing in the school system. The first is on the 4th of April at 7:30 in the morning. We have a board work session where some of our staff will be presenting kindergarten readiness assessment data. I believe we've touched on this briefly when we've been here before. Very, very important topic about an assessment that we give to our kindergarten students that really is a reflection on the whole community in terms of where our students are coming into kindergarten. A conversation that needs to be community-wide, and so we invite you to that work session to hear that information. The second item is on the 10th of April at 9:15 a.m. We are doing a demonstration on the importance of technology in instruction. That's at Fruitland Intermediate, where our board members, and we're hoping that you all will join us. I know you've seen our budget. There may be some, actually there is some request in the budget for some technology that we see as integral to our instructional program. So we invite you to come and be a part of that demonstration on the 10th of April. Hope you'll join us.
Trying to get it in the calendar.
Okay.
Any questions from any? Joe? Use your mic, Jim.
How do you distribute the information on scholarships in the high schools to students?
I can share.
Okay. You can come up,
and
yeah.
join us. This is Kim Miles.
Yeah.
If most of you.
We've had, there's been some incidents in the past few weeks or months that I've had that question asked of me, so.
Okay.
It's a great question. I have a great answer for you. Good afternoon, everyone. We use a program that's called Naviance. It's used throughout the state and other states beyond Maryland. Actually, there are pages for every school. The students have full access. Students start using Naviance in 6th grade, and that way they have quite a familiarity with it by the time they're in high school. Parents have Naviance logins as well. Every scholarship to which we have any access or information is listed in there. Students go in, pull up their school, everything comes up, they decide what they want to apply for, pull the application off directly, and it gives them all the links that they need.
Okay.
And as well, we encourage the students to stay in face-to-face contact with their school guidance counselors in order to have that additional support. But the electronic data is there and is accessible 24/7.
So to the parents and the students?
Absolutely.
And that's pretty much it? Anybody else can't get there?
You have to have your school login to
Right.
get into it.
Okay. Okay. So the guidance counselors, do they have interaction with the students as far as?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. We have, having been in the high schools, you can walk through at any point in time, usually starting in about October, maybe wait till November to see this part, but you'll see the announcements for colleges that are visiting, the announcement boards for which scholarships are due on which dates, lots of reminders. Several of the counselors have either school-based Twitter accounts or the school Facebook account or things of that nature that will give the deadlines, the reminders that go out to the parents on the Sunday calls. Lots of avenues for getting that information out there.
I've heard complaints from people that have scholarships to give away and say they're not getting responses. Are you guys tracking how many of the scholarships that are available and how many are taken advantage of by any chance?
I believe we can get that information. I don't have that available today, but certainly as a parent of 2 who graduated in the not-too-distant past, 14 and 15, even being in the school system, it was like pulling teeth sometimes to get them, love my children, but pulling their teeth to get them to fill out the applications. And so I can understand the challenges that the families go through, but yes, it's very much available. We wish the problem was quite the opposite, that there were way too many applicants for the money that's available. And that happens in some of the scholarships. Sometimes it depends on what is required of the scholarship sponsor. And sometimes students will make a decision based on how much work they have to do in order to apply. But certainly our counselors are in that system looking at what's available, making one-on-one contacts. Hey, I heard you might have an interest in this area. Here's a scholarship that you may want to look into. And then it's push as far as you can, and then it's up to the student to actually get it completed.
Well, one of the reasons this came up was the Bennett free tuition. And, you know, that's supposed to be an avenue of the last resort as far as getting money to go to college. And, you know, through that, I've heard complaints from people that's had scholarships to give away and said, you know, we don't even have people applying for them. And so why are we giving free tuition when people really aren't even applying for the money that's already available? So that's one of the reasons I wanted to find out just how you did distribute it. So you feel that that's, the information's you're doing all you can do to get it out there.
I feel that there are certainly a lot of avenues that this information is being shared with students, being shared with families, persons who have specific concerns with relation to lack of response on a scholarship. I would encourage them. Contact our supervisor of guidance and counseling, Lori Batts. Contact me, let me know, and we can start looking into it. Maybe it's very specific to a particular major, or some you have to have a relative who had been involved in a certain activity. There could be any number of reasons, but if the reason is on our end that it's not being communicated, then we would want to rectify that. I don't think that to be the case because of the availability of the information as it exists currently.
One of the reasons I hear is some of the scholarships aren't large enough to, you know, it's not worth their time for a $500 scholarship. Of course, if you have enough $500 scholarships to apply for it, it'll work out. But,
as a parent paying tuition for two,
yeah,
it all works.
Yeah, so, okay.
It's all very much valued.
Well, I'm glad you're trying to do all you can to get it out
Absolutely,
there.
and we're open
That
to
was one
other
of my
ideas as well.
concerns. Yeah, okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, certainly.
Kim, does
Yes.
the board still keep a book like this with the scholarships?
No, that was the hard copy version
Yes.
that we had prior to Naviance. And the Naviance, the online record, is a much broader distribution. Now, the counselors obviously have a written record in their offices as a reference, but because of the availability of the information, a student could go to the county library and log on to Naviance. They can do it from their cell phone at the appropriate time, using it in the appropriate way. They could do it from their tablet or laptop. Parents, the same thing, so.
So we as a council wouldn't be able to get a hard copy?
I can check on that for you. I don't have a copy that I would have
I remember
to
there
give
was
you.
a lot of scholarships.
But
there, and
Naviance
some
will
of them
have
were
it for you.
specific, like you said.
Very much so, very much so. And I will tell you, getting into Naviance, you can sort it by the due date, you can sort it by alphabetical order, and it is just pages and pages. I would say within the last, I want to say 6 to 8 weeks, we've probably had at least 5 scholarships, 4 to be safe, but I think it was 5 scholarships that have been added because groups come to us and want to have this information shared. So our role is to get it out there, to push as far as we can push in the appropriate manner to get these students to apply, and then to wait to celebrate with them when they get the award.
If you could possibly get us.
I will look into that, most definitely, Mr. Dodd. I'll get back to you and let you know, certainly. Ms. Batts is out of the office. As soon as she returns, I'll
Okay.
do that.
I guess one final question on this. You know, to give away a scholarship is kind of an honorable thing to do for any group. Or,
Absolutely.
You know. Is there any way to put this on a different system or have this system fixed so anybody can go on and look and see what scholarships are available? I mean, that would be a feather in the cap to the people that are giving them away, and it might help in, you know, to give these scholarships away.
That's certainly something we could discuss further. I mean, obviously, we want all children to have the opportunity to earn scholarships, children, youth, students. We want to have that contact with our Wicomico County public school students to move that forward. And also, as far as the public venue, there's the Community Foundation website, and that lists a large number of scholarships. You'll see, if you see in Naviance, those same scholarships are in the Naviance system, but they are out there publicly in the Community Foundation, cfes.org. It's a great avenue for looking for those as well.
Okay.
Same type of system, very, very much parallel one to the other.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you.
I want to go back very quickly, if we could. Mrs. Hurley was kind enough to point out to me that we might have some, I want to make sure we don't have any loose ends on the nominating committee that was formed and everybody's role in that. Because once we nominate, once we appoint those nominees, then that body comes under the, I guess, oversight of the Board of Education. And this commission will now have to meet, they'll have to appoint a chair and a vice chair. They'll have to then begin their process of the appointments that are going to come back to the county council. So it's not a case as whether the council is now overseeing any responsibilities of this commission. That commission has now been appointed, and it is the Board of Education that will be responsible to make sure that this committee is meeting. They're publicizing for applicants, and that they will then choose those applicants and then send those back to the county council for final approval. It's all new.
Okay.
I had never heard that.
It's all new.
Well, I knew the administrative responsibility, and I guess that's really what you're referring to.
Yeah, and we'll be glad to give you a copy of the Senate
We
bill
have
that was
that.
passed.
Right, we have that.
You have it, okay. What Mrs. Hurley gave me was page 5 through 7, I think, is where it really establishes where we go from here. So I would, re-review that and see exactly where we are now. It says here, because I was thinking that our deadline was going to be the 1st of July when they would retire, but this actually says that within 60 days of a vacancy, so it's not as crunched as we thought it might be in that sense. But just so you understand.
60 days prior or post?
Excuse me?
60 days prior or post?
Within 60 days of a vacancy, so it would be 60 days afterwards, yes.
Well,
We would have to have filled that vacancy.
60 days within, it seems like you could start operating 60 days before.
Right.
I'm not saying they
that's
can't,
within. Oh, okay.
but I'm saying that the leeway, there's a little bit more
Gotcha.
leeway.
Yeah.
Because initially I was thinking they would have to do it as soon as the person had retired. We'd have to have somebody else in place ready to go, but that's not the case. But still, just so that you're aware of what the roles are and how they play out. And of course, let us know if you have any questions.
Okay.
So, small oversight. Anything else?
From our end.
Okay,
Okay.
we appreciate it.
Thanks
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Hope to see you on the 4th and the 10th.
Got it in my calendar.
Very good, thank you. Nice to see you all.
Done?
Entertain a motion from council to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Meeting's adjourned.